Good morning, and this is another video for Junctions now. What we've done approximately to this would be our moving off and stopping. There's also our gear changes and introducing to clutch control. So this could be an introduction where you've done a manoeuvre, maybe a 3-point turn or turn the road as it might go, and you would have done that at the end of the road and done some practice, maybe with some creeping traffic. So what we're going to try to do is link them main elements into our junctions now, and frankly the prepare, observe, manoeuvre, and if we've got a competent level of getting the car ready, doing a few observations before we move off, and some gear changes and getting some reasonably good starts by now, and the mirror sub manoeuvre routine being used effectively as you come to a start, and some basic knowledge of clutch control, you've got to link those elements into our junctions. So in relation to junctions, what we need to try and do is obviously link back to our previous knowledge and bring them skill levels into our junctions. In relation to junctions, we have to first of all deal with knowing what a junction is. So a junction is where a vehicle can join another vehicle's path, i.e. a traffic light, roundabout, or in these instances that we're going to be practicing today, a minor to major road, a major to minor road. Now, a lot of people think that this is to do with the busyness. Now, it's nothing to do with busyness, because busyness might be the type of road that you're on. You know, M road, think of them as your main arteries that run through your body. Veins, which are the kind of bigger vessels, which can be like your A roads. B roads like your little capillaries that run to little parts of your body. So if you think about A, B and M roads as relation to volume, that would be a good description of how busy roads would be. But a minor to major road, or major to minor, is about who has priority. So in relation to who has priority, if you're in a minor crossing into someone's path on a major road, then this would be where you'd be joining someone's path from a minor to major. But this can happen at crossroads. It can also be similar in ways of thinking about it as like a roundabout or a traffic light. So as far as it goes, let's first of all talk a little bit about junctions. First of all, to recognise one. So to recognise one, we can look at the layout of the land. So the layout of the land could be ends of the road. You could have a situation where you're about to turn into a junction. Perhaps you could recognise the junction by looking out for other road users. Signs can help you know that you're approaching a junction, because we have a upside down triangle. The upside down triangle means give way to vehicles on the major road. Some of them might have the stop sign when you reach the end, which is where you must stop by law and give way. The upside down triangle give way, though, is where you don't necessarily have to come to a complete standstill. As long as you've given way and the way is clear, you can enter the junction. And that's an upside down triangle saying give way. When it actually comes to markings then, so we could look out for markings. So the marking that we're particularly looking out for is a double dotted line here for give way traffic on the major road. And then you have a thinner single line on the other side of the road where traffic usually turns in. If you get the giveaway line going all the way across, this could be written upside down saying no entry as well, which could be the end of a one-way street. So you can use your signs, use your lane markings, assessed by other road users. Sometimes you can copy what other road users are doing. If you see a vehicle already turning left, you can watch their position and follow them to the left. If you're turning right, you could follow them the way they might turn right. Sometimes you have this extra central marking or a slip to go into, where then you're no longer interfering with traffic when you come to your turn. This is so we don't slow traffic mostly on the major road. So off you go, signs, lane markings and other roads, but we need to make an assessment about who, what, where and why. This is thinking about hazard and risks. Now, 3 questions you could ask are, what can you see? So maybe, for an example, what you can see is a cyclist. What can't you see is whether that cyclist might decide to do something else, but you could reasonably expect it. So they're the 3 questions. So what can you see, what can't you see, and what could you reasonably expect to happen? So if you see the cyclist starts to look over their shoulder, we can easily expect they're probably going to be changing position or turning right. So we need to think about, be ready to take some form of action, be ready to slow down and stop. Consider not passing if you were thinking of passing them leading up to the junction. When you pass cyclists around junctions, they could make turns, so usually not to pass. But if they are in a situation where you are passing on a normal street and you'd like to know they're not going to turn because there's no junction around, right, you can see that they are just normally riding along. We need to give them at least 2 metre clearance, as much room as we would give a car or more, And if you are passing them, of course, use those mirrors, of course, effectively to go round and make sure you've cleared them. So there's lots of things that you can ask for in relation to what can you see or what can't you see. When you get to the end of the road, if you've got good vision, what can you see is maybe there's no traffic. So you might be able to keep going if the way is clear, which is the give way. But if it's a case of where what you can see is a stop sign, must stop by law. But if it was a case of what can't you see? Okay, so what can't you see is either side to your left and right. And then if you see parked obstructions, because parked obstructions behind many parked obstructions could be another hazard. So behind one hazard could be another. So a good example in the highway code shows you emerging out from right from a junction, and then there's a vehicle that's pulled up showing a left signal, and there's a motorcyclist passing them. Now what this could mean is behind that hazard could be another hazard. So what we need to do is spend enough time at the junction in case there was something that could be behind that row of parked car or the obstruction. It's something you could reasonably expect to happen, that there is something there. So what we need to do is take some form of action of being waiting for a little moment to make sure we're sure that that way is clear before we join the road. As well as the situation that you have there, it's thinking about vision then and activity. So if you've got good vision, you could maybe approach it at a little more greater speed, maybe around 10. If you're at a close, it's 10 miles per hour. If at a closed junction, maybe 0 miles per hour, and considering first gear almost to a stop, or if it's stop sign, stop by law. So what we need to do is look for what vision we have. What activity also affects what speed we might approach at. So our approach speed to a junction effectively is what we can see, what we can't see, what can really expect to happen, and what vision and activity we actually have. Just remember, the less you can see, the slower you must be. Also in relation to the junction, the sharper or narrower the turn, the slower you need to be. So less you can see, slower you must be. Narrower it is, the slower it is my few rhymes I like to use. So let's dig into approach to a junction then, using our mirror signal maneuver routine. What I'd like to expand on though is the position, speed, gear, look system. So where the maneuver ends, the back end of that system, we have to consider these early days, our positioning, our speed, our gear and our look. So if it was cases you was coming to like a junction at the end of the road, this is one of the old student folders. So if you're coming to the end of the road, what you'd look for is that first of all, you'd look to see if you're approaching from a minor to a major road. Now, if you feel as though when you approach that minor to major road, you have poor vision, of course, be ready to slow down or stop and look for assessing hazards and risks. But if you're going to be using the system of mirror signal maneuver, if we're going left, we check our mirrors for left, signal left, and keep our normal 1 metre from the curb, an ordinary driving position, unless we're moving around any particular hazard. As we reduce speed, our clutch goes down, and we then move our position over to the left whilst we reduce speed and change to our first gear if we have to stop. Now, if when we're at a junction we want to assess whether it's safe to go, a lot of people make the mistake of looking to the right first of all. Now, the only thing about looking to the right first of all, we're not looking where we're going for our left position to get our angle correct. This confirms that we are turning left in that position and also betters your vision. So what we need to try and do is consider looking where we're going first. So look where you want to go first for the end of the road. Consider as you come to your smooth stop to gradually ease that pressure off to get those progressive smooth stops that you've maybe worked on and you move off and stop in. And as we move our eyes, we then glance to our right and mostly to our left. Now, if you're going to see a problem, it's mostly going to be where you're going, because what we need to look out for is that there could be other obstructions parked on the other side of the road. And this is where commonly accidents happen. It's the Sydney accident, which is, sorry mate, I did not see you. So this is where if you've looked to the right and you've decided that it's clear and you're going to start to go, the shock horror of something from your left could be quite prominent there because of the vehicle being parked on the side, maybe a vehicle in your path, but you wouldn't have seen it if you hadn't looked. So I'd say mostly look where you want to go, glance to the right, and if you see the way is clear, then we'll move to the gas and bite and feet still and venture into a new road. Now, once you've used your push-pull steer and straightened pull-push steering into your road, then we glance to our centre mirror and then consider slowly lifting the clutch back to the top and then going for our next gear. Now, the reason why we're checking our centre mirror is in case there is something behind us before we speed up. We should assess that maybe we should accelerate harder and get up to speed, but you shouldn't really affect traffic when you've come to the emerge. But when you're actually coming to the approach, reason why we're checking our mirrors, see what's behind and what's to our left side, because we're negotiating a left position and we're changing some sort of speed and direction. So we need to know exactly what's going on around us. Now moving on to our left turn from major to minor. So when we go from major to minor, normally we have priority over traffic that's going to be coming out of the minor road, but do think about this single line. Still means give way to risk though and hazard in our new road. So recognise the junction, assess what dangers you have, look for what vision and activity you're having to turn on the way up. But what we need to do is try and extend our view up to the junction, go along with our mirror checks for left, signalling left, and our position our normal 1 metre from the curb. But reducing speed at this point might be necessary if you're travelling downhill, of course, to maintain that light pressure whilst you change down. And then as you go into the turn, we gradually lift our clutch into the turn, as long as our speed's safe. Now, when you're looking into the turn, if you find that it's very hard to see into or it's very narrow or sharp, you may have to consider reduce speed further and down to 0 miles per hour in first gear if there is a hazard. So what we need to do is think about what vision again we have and what activity there is into the turn as to how fast we should approach it. Now, way that you would know you're approaching that junction from major to minor, you may have seen the back that would go the warning sign for crossroad. And it would just be a minor road to the left or a minor road to the right. But the thick line in the middle is the major road. So that's how you know you're going from major to a minor road. So it's the same system. Do beware of vehicles which are actually turning across your path, and do beware of vehicles that might be coming out the junction. If you find a cyclist, usually don't pass in front of them, let them pass the junction that you turn into first. We'll expand a little bit more on pedestrian crossings in our next lessons, but what we need to talk about is pedestrians at junctions as well in a moment. But what we need to do is just quickly talk about the right turn from major to minor and minor to major. Now it's the same system, but actually moves to the right. So instead of checking our centre and left mirror, we'll be checking our centre and right mirror. Consider signalling right to let people know your intentions. Position. Now position, I like to always say, position as far right as what would be safe. Because sometimes it depends if there's a parked obstruction on the other side, it could bring traffic into our path. The other issue is that when you move to the right, there might be lack of centre line, so we've got to imagine there being one to split the road down the middle and keep left of centre. And as you're reducing your speed, we need to consider going down to a suitable gear. So as you reduce speed and you're down to first gear, you might look both ways at the end of the road, of course. But when you're moving your eyes, look for other hazards and other problems that could be hidden. And if you see the way is clear, we must venture onto our own side, so be careful not to steer too much onto the wrong side of the road. Make sure the curve's on our near side on our left when we exit. But we're going to be using our gas and our biting point and creeping slowly out the junction. Now, other factors that consider how far you might position, this could happen if you're in major to minor as well, is that it could be if you're in a one-way system. Now, one-way systems, we normally keep well to the right with the curb on the offside, on your right side of the vehicle. However, what we need to look out for other hazards that might limit us from going over to that position. But the reason why we can go over there, because there shouldn't be anything coming the other way. In fact, we should be over there, but otherwise we're going to confuse others in our position. So to turn right from major to minor, this one extra hazard that we've got is the oncoming vehicle. So we have our system for turn right, so it's mirrors for right, signal right, position to the right or as far right as what we safe, reducing speed, clutch goes down, shift down to second. If your way is clear, we can slowly lift the clutch into the turn. If it's the case though, when you look into your turn, we need to turn at the right time. We don't want to turn in too soon because the risk of cutting the centre line of the new road and crossing a vehicle's path as they come to the end. And turning too late with the risk of clipping the curb or being a hard steer to the right and left, or we might end up in a swan neck. What we're trying to do is the bonnet starts to meet the centre line of the new road. That's when you begin to turn, but try and look well into the turn before turning in so you can look for other hazards on the way up to the junction and for our turn. If you do have to slow further and give way though, where that bonnet meets the centre line new road or your front wheels reach that centre line new road, not to go any further than this, because when you actually turn we might do the swan neck or have a problem with our steering into relation to the curb. So we look into the new road and look forward to make sure you feel the way is clear. Now generally I like to say if you can walk the gap, if you was considering you'd walk the gap across the vehicle's path that's coming towards you as a pedestrian, you can probably drive the gap. So what we need to do is just assess looking forward and into a turn. If we feel like we can walk across the gap like we'd cross the road, we'll set the gas, find the biting point and keep your feet nice and still. Venture into your new road with your wheel. after you've straightened up, you'll then glance centre and begin to speed up and change up to our next gears. So that's the main system for junctions, but this system is quite dynamic. The mirror signal position reduced speed gear look routine can be used in meeting traffic in your holdback positions. It can be used up to corners and bends. So you will expand on this a little bit in advanced driving. It moves into another module with MSPSGL, but we won't talk about that for the moment. But as far as it goes, when when we're around pedestrians, do take into look into activity and the rule that came up in the highway code, the hierarchy of road users. Pedestrians have priority at junctions as well as cyclists. So as we're near a junction, if you're about to turn left and you are the only person that's on the road other than the pedestrian, so it's you and just the pedestrian alone, you could consider giving way, but never beckon. We've said never to beckon to pedestrians or any other road user. Pause and allow them to make their own decision. Now if it looks like they're not going to cross, then continue with the junction as you would proceed as normal. But then if it looks like the pedestrian wants to cross, pause and allow them to make a decision. If there is other factors though, like a vehicle that could be on the other road turning in, or a vehicle behind that might be holding up, then consider just following the normal rules and allow the pedestrian to maybe consider crossing after you've gone or behind you, but do consider use of handbrake. Pedestrian does walk behind your vehicle, we don't want to roll back. So that's about as much as I can tell you about junctions at this stage. There is other junctions that we'll talk about, but let's keep it simple on the main junctions today. So this is the main lengthy briefing on how to get the main nitty-gritty stuff about junctions. But what we'll do is keep it short and sweet and expand into the mirror summary routine of position, reduce speed, change gear, look into our junctions now. Okay, so let's get ready.